A few weeks ago, the nominating committee nominated the church leaders, new leaders for 2023 and 24. And I believe it was voted about a few weeks ago, right? Do you still remember that? Fresh? Yeah? Okay. And thank you for your willingness to serve the Lord. And even though if your name wasn't on the list, but if you still like to serve in a certain area in our church setting, you can talk to me or one of the elders. So we still have many rooms to serve as a part of the congregation and family. So reflecting on what it means to serve the Lord, we use this phrase often, serve the Lord. And so this morning we're going to reflect what it means to serve the Lord. And which is more powerful or most powerful, like a volunteer spirit or recruiting spirit or like mandatory spirit or hired spirit? Which is the most powerful spirit? You do not know? In most cases, the volunteer spirit is most powerful. Why? Because they choose it with a love for the work. Right? And so if it's a pure volunteer spirit, that's the most the powerful spirit. And at the same time, God never forces anyone to work for Him or with Him. Do you know that? And at the same time, He invites everyone with His gentle love. That's amazing. And anyone who is willing can serve Him and work with Him. And you are the ones who responded to the invitation of gentle love of God. And you are volunteers who joined God's saving work. And welcome to God's vineyard. Okay? So next slide, please. So before we go further, we should have defined what the Lighthouse of Church is. Next slide, please. So first of all, the church isn't a building. And it's strange, no matter how often we emphasize it, people still believe the church is a building. Right? But church is not a building. The physical sanctuary doesn't exist anymore anywhere in the world after Jesus died on the cross. The most holy place, between holy place, the most holy place, the curtain was torn from top to bottom when Jesus said it is finished. So there's nowhere in the world the sanctuary, the physical holy place exists. Right? So don't be confused. And some people say this where pastor preaches is the most holy place. Right? And it's good to have that kind of concept, but we shouldn't be confused. Church isn't a building. Then what the church is? A church is people. Okay? People who are called out to deliver the gospel to the end of the earth. That's the church. So in a sense, I'm a church, Joel. And each of you can say with your name. Let's try it. I'm a church, Joel, and you are? All right, you do not have that confidence? Let's try again with confidence, okay? I'm Church Joel. Right? So we are individual church because each of us are called to deliver the gospel to the end of the earth. Then when we get together in such a setting like this, we become a church, Lighthouse of Church, and become a part of the body of the Lighthouse of Church. You are not entering into this worship place because this is a church. But you are entering this building to be a part of the church of the Lighthouse of Hope. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. There is difference, right? You are coming into this building because this is a Lighthouse Church. No, this building is not the Lighthouse of Church. Maybe physically names for convenience. But the building is not the Lighthouse Church. But you are getting into this building to be a part of the Lighthouse Church. So you are part, like I have 2 eyes and 2 arms. They are part of my body, right? And they're all together here to function as a person's role. The same way, in order to light us to function as a lighthouse of a church, we need every one of you. And you are coming into this building to be part of it. Not come and sit down and listen to music and listen to the sermon. That's not the concept of worship that the Bible teaches. So when a part of the body doesn't function, it becomes disabled, right? If I wish I never happened, but if I do not, I cannot see with my left eye. I mean, I'm disabled because my left eye cannot see anything. The same way, the Lighthouse of Church is a body. Right? We can be only function well when every one of us join together and do the job. What if this morning when I want to come to church and my right leg says, no, I will stay home. It cannot be happen, physically, but you can figure it out, right? That's terrible. If my 2 legs say, no, I'm too tired, you exercise too much, I will stay home. It's a disaster. The same way the church works that way too. We need every one of you. So if you have thought your presence doesn't mean much to us, no. I'd like to let you know that we cannot be complete without you. I'm talking everyone. Which means every week, a Lighthouse Church missing someone. The missed part of the body. So don't let us miss you, okay? And, so no can be perfect with a missing piece. Right? And when God has planned to make the Lighthouse Church, He had in mind the perfect puzzle for the Lighthouse of Church. And you are not sitting here by chance, but providence. God planned for you to be here and be one piece of the God's puzzle of the Lighthouse of Church. And without your presence, it cannot be perfect. Right? It cannot be perfect without you. So first, what does God expect us when He invites us to work with Him? Right? So this morning, we're going to see what does God expect us when He invites us to work with Him. So 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2, moreover, it is required in stewards, means each of us, that one be found together faithful. Right? That's what God requires when we volunteer to work with God. And what is being faithful? What does it mean to be faithful? So I will shortly describe some elements that will help us to understand what faith is in a more practical way. Okay, so number one, next slide please. Let's say together, be joyful. Louder, be joyful. Great. So serving God and doing church work should bring us joy. Amen? It shouldn't be burdensome. It should make you excited. So when you wake up like on Saturday morning, it's already 8. Right? It's 8:30. I should go to church. No, it's not like that. Our soul should be excited when you think about coming to church and to serve the Lord. So if you haven't felt this way, ask God. Ask God to give you a new spirit, the spirit of joy. Doesn't mean that I'm always excited every week. No, not like that. But in a big picture, I can tell I still have the joy. I hope I can continue to have the joy. Before I study in the seminary, I volunteered the missionary work for 1.5 years. And after doing that, and before I made decision to go to seminary, I knew this is the work that I cannot do without joy. That's the reason we do not have theology students much, not many theology students in Burman University in Canada. But this is like serving the Lord should have the volunteer spirit and with the true joy in the heart. But this is not only for the pastors, but everyone who made decision to accept Jesus as their personal Savior and Lord, they should have this spirit of joy as they serve the Lord. Number 2, be well informed, right? And be sure of what you are called for. Okay? And the church is going to give you training and provide the resources, which we tried before pandemic, but somehow we stopped and didn't work well. But now we are, instructing, and we are going to give you training to perform well in your given job. But I also encourage you to spend some time getting to know about your ministry. Okay? It's all about your interest. Don't just say, okay, this is my job and I come and do it. But it's better if you can study and read books and also take seminars. And if any expenses happen, we can talk about it together. Okay? So if you need, to buy some books to improve your ministry, let us know. We'll figure it out how we can help you. If there's any good seminar to improve your ministry, and just let us know. So we can talk about it together and find a way to support. Now think about it. If you're interested in something, you invest, do you? And also you go to YouTube and try to know how you do it. Think about how many times have you searched in YouTube to be to your ministry better. How often have you done it? 0. So now we are going to change our mindset. Okay? This is God's work. Now God has invited you to join His work. And you are not just going to do it, just do it. Right? So invest your time and your energy so that you can My brothers and sisters, we are doing God's business. So before I came to Winnipeg, I was serving the church which was in the division office. So they always talked about, you know what, even the church, whatever they do, it should be division standard, which I didn't like it much. Because I was, so anyway, church was just a local church, even though it was in the division office. But they told us, you know, since your church is in division, everything you do should be division standard. You know what? We are doing God's work, King's business, and we should be His standard. Amen? So which means there is no limit to improvement. We can continue to improve because we are in King's business. Okay, next one. Together, be reliable. Okay? Even though you are a volunteer. So I was saying in the end, God will ask for our accountability. Right? So the volunteer doesn't mean that you are not responsible. Okay, we are all responsible when we said yes to the Lord's work. Okay? The next one, please. Together, be available and punctual. Man, come on. This is the area that we have to greatly improve. Okay? So, you know that how many of you work, you have a job and go to work? Most of you, right? And the many workplaces have an attendance policy. That's true. If you're tardy for like 3-4 times, you'll be disciplined. And if you continue to tardy for another 3 times, you'll have a warning email. And after that, you will receive email to clean your space and go home. Right? That's very strict, and you won't be late for your work. And because you know the consequence. Is that true? Yeah? And you students, you won't be late for your school continually. If your professor says if you're late for 3 times, you will be out of this class. And how many of you will be late for 3-4 times? No, because you know the consequence of doing that, right? And also, you wouldn't be absent without giving a notification when you work. Would you do that? You say, "Oh, I'm not feeling good. I just stay home without really texting or emailing." That's a very bad sign. Yeah, that's a very bad sign. And I'm sorry, but today's sermon is not a soft one. So why should we be late for church when we aren't late for anything else? Think about logically. Why we do that? Yeah? Why we do that? So I encourage when you are on duty, practice coming even earlier than appointed time. That makes sense, right? You not just arrive on time. But when you're on duty, arrive earlier. You know, when we set 9:30 a.m. for the churches to start, I probably haven't thought about this way. We are inviting God to be here at 9:30. Did you think about this way? Like when we announce, okay, Lighthouse Church starts 9:30. You know, actually, I often get a phone call for like travelers and the newcomers. They say, "Oh, I'd like to go to your church this Sabbath, and what time do you start? And what time should I give them?" 9:30? Do you know how many people who are here 9:30 today? Yeah. So, don't you think you should be here earlier than God? Yeah? When we invite God to be here, we should come here earlier than God. Don't you think so? Now you feel a little guilty? No, the guilty feeling is good if we can improve, right? So from next week, think about it. And why am I late for church? And why I don't late for school or late for work? Think about it and you find your own answer why you do that. Since we are serving God. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's read. Next slide. Okay, let's read it together. Be cooperative and communicate. So as I indicated, we become one body as we get together in the name of Lighthouse Church. And we cannot work together without unity. And working without unity is meaningless. Why do I say that? So when we work in unity, the world will know that Jesus is the Christ. That's what Jesus said in John 17. But the opposite is true. If we work without unity, the world will not know that Jesus is the Christ. So listen carefully. Working without unity isn't working for God. Okay? Working without unity isn't working with God either. Actually working against God. Did you get it? So when we do the work and service for the Lord, but if we do not have that right unity, actually we are working against God in the name of Jesus. Okay, John 17, verses 23 says, I in them and you in me, and they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me, and have loved them as you have loved me. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, just as we are one. So unity is essential in the church, and we should work in unity. Okay? In the church community, we need to learn to be united. Learn to be united, even though we disagree at some points. Okay? So we are very different from each other. Think about how many nationalities we represent this morning. We speak different languages. We from different cultural setting. We eat different kind of food. Right? We have different, value systems, and we cannot agree on everything. And some things are ridiculous, stupid, and it's very difficult to accept it when you cross the culture. Because in one culture, it makes perfect sense. And when you cross the another culture, it's ridiculous why they do it. But that's not a wise way to say it, though. So, however, even though we are different from each other, once anything is voted on, okay? Once anything is voted on in the board or in church business meeting, we need to work together in unity to achieve the goal, even though you said no for the vote. That's also democracy, right? So let's say we vote on something and 60% of you agreed and 40% of you disagreed. and eventually the 60% agreed will move on. Then what the 40% of the members do? Damn, I'm going to go to another church. I will not join. Come on, right? We can do better than that. I don't mean that we do it at the Lighthouse. We are very good. We are very good. I've been to different churches. I can, without hesitation, I can say Lighthouse Church is the best. Good job. But still, I don't know how much you really agree inwardly. Because in some culture, I know you have cultural background, you do not really say no to people. Say, oh, okay, but inside say, no, not at all, right? But I'll say, okay, we can do that. So think about it. So once you vote, once anything is voted in the church, and even in your small groups, in your ministry team, meetings, once anything is voted, whether you agreed or disagreed, and you should join. And the voted one will become your opinion. Even though deep in your heart, it's very difficult to agree. But that's the only way we can work together on this earth, because we are limited and with many shortcomings. But if I think I am the best, my opinion is always good, the best one. And maybe outwardly we can work together, but it's not really unity. God knows the heart. Okay? So, at the same time, God also expects us to communicate to each other. In relationships, any kind of relationships, the most dangerous thing is interpretation. Because when someone says certain things, say, probably he doesn't like me, and she doesn't like me. And why does he say this way? Right? So interpretation between husband and wife, and between parents and children and parents, if you continue to interpret, actually you are writing a novel, which is not true. You are just creating your own story, interpreting the situation and conversation. And it's in Winnipeg. It's easy when you don't really have to communicate, right? When you don't like it, there are many churches, like 7-8 churches in Winnipeg. I can fly to another church and go there. Because it's a burdensome, and why bother? Come on, we live together in heaven forever. Someone says in joking way, if you want to know who will be your neighbor in heaven, think about the person you like least. God has a sense of humor. Right? But if you think you can avoid here and going to other church, we'll soon meet again in heaven and live together forever. How would you live there forever if you cannot work here and agree and to work together? Right? So communicate. If there's something that you do not understand, you want to know, like I'm reachable, and the elders of the church, they're reachable. So talk to them your concern and care, even any good suggestions, so that we can communicate instead of interpreting the situation and other people's conversation. Okay? Make sense? Cool? All right. The next one. Together, be spiritual. So most importantly, to serve God, we should be spiritual. Why? The spiritual work cannot be done with a carnal mind. Okay, Romans 8:7, because the carnal mind is enmity against God. To make it simple way, if you do not have Jesus in your heart, that is carnal mind. Okay? And the carnal mind is against God. Then how can we serve the Lord with the carnal mind? Right? That's why in Isaiah, God said, I am detestable of your offerings. Why? Because they served God with a carnal mind. It's not, they think they're holy, but God says, no, I am detestable. It's detestable. So we cannot be spiritual without spending time with God in prayer and meditating on the Word of God. Is that right? Right? You cannot be spiritual without spending time with God. Right? So if it is in your daily routine yet, I advise you start today. Don't think that you are going to start tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. Now, how many plans, perished because you said you are going to do it from tomorrow? Yeah? So tomorrow never comes. Start from today. So this isn't actually optional if you want to be spiritually alive and serve the Lord. This is not optional. You must take your spiritual food to sustain your spiritual life. Imagine, you come to church without breakfast, and this is 12:15, and man, I'm hungry. And you stay the last here, and during the potluck, when you go down, there's no food. Man, I'm dying. And before you go home and certain thing happens, you couldn't go home until 6 p.m. And when you arrived home, man, I have no single calorie to work on. You know that hunger, right? How about spiritually? How many days can you go the fasting spiritually? Oh man, I can go forever and ever, right? No way. That's what you think. I often describe, thank you, please forgive me. This is not real, right? Okay. All right. So just imagine that I got one leaf from there. That's a real one, let's say that. That's still greenish, right? Still fresh. But what's the difference between the leaf in my hand and the rest of the leaves? They are still connected to the source of life. The leaf I'm holding disconnected from source of life. Probably right now it would look same, but 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you know what? Even I just put it in the water, it'll be greenish for over a week. But technically, it's dead. When you think you're okay spiritually fasting for 1 day, a week, month, even years, I'm sorry, you are technically dead. Just leave in my hand. You are disconnected from the source of life. If you think you're still alive, I can wake you up. Sorry, you are spiritually dead. So start from today, right? If you want to serve the Lord as your God and your Heavenly Father, be spiritual. If it's not, it's meaningless. Okay? So next slide, please. So living sacrifice. So when we be joyful, well informed, and be reliable and available and punctual, and cooperative and communicate, and we be spiritual, we can be a living sacrifice. 1 Samuel chapter 6 records a very interesting story. The Philistines had been great enemy of Israel. As you were reading 1 and 2 Samuel, and you got to know those stories, right? And they attacked Israel often and killed many Israelites. And one incident, Israel was greatly defeated, and they captured the Ark of the Lord. It's a very shame. And they took it to their territory. But instead of a blessing, for 7 months, a lot of disasters happened. So they said, no, we are not going to keep it here. So they decided to send it back to Israel. And the way they chose and how it was accepted teach us great spiritual lessons. Okay? So they made a new cart and took 2 milk cows that have never been under a yoke. What do you mean milk cows? Recently delivered calves. Okay? So put their calves back in the shed. That's the most terrible thing would happen to the milking cow. Be away from their calves. Then let them carry the ark of God back to Israel. Then they said, 1 Samuel chapter 6 verse 9, and watch, if it goes up the road to its own territory, Israel's territory, to Beth Shemesh, then God has done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that this is not his hand that struck us. It happened to us by chance. Okay, that's how they figured out. Then what happened? 1 Samuel chapter 6 verse 12. Then the cows headed straight to the road to Beth Shemesh and went along the highway, lowing as they went. You can imagine they were, taken away. Their calves were taken away. So they cried all the way to go to the territory of Israel. I think this is like a first thing before Tesla, the Bible records a story of self-driving. Do you know what I mean? It was self-driving without man sitting and directing the cows. So probably Elon Musk got an impression from this Bible verse. And the lords of Philistines went after them to the border of Beth Shemesh because they wanted to see whether cows would go directly to the territory of Israel. So they successfully finished their mission, right? They weren't distracted by anything. But they went straight, and they brought the Ark of God back to the territory of Israel. But what did the people of Beth Shemesh do when the cows, with the cows, after they delivered the Ark of the Lord? What did they do with the cows? 1 Samuel chapter 6, verses 13 and 14. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they lifted their eyes and saw the ark, and rejoiced to see it. Then the cart came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh, and stood there. A large stone was there. So they split the wood of the cart and offered the cows as burnt offering to the Lord. So 2 cows were chosen, and they had calves which needed milk. But they had to leave their calves back. And sometimes I feel like animals have a great instinct, like mother instinct, to take care of their babies than us. Literally, they give their lives to protect their babies. So that's why I said the most terrible thing would happen to the milking cow is just removing calves from them. A great mission was given carrying the Ark of God. And they successfully finished. Then they were offered as a burnt offering. That was their rewards. Right? After successfully finished doing God's work, burnt offering was their reward. After faithful service. Volunteering for the work of God requires sacrifice. Right? And it's a sacrifice of joy and love. We can find some of those truths in the Bible. Those who died, they didn't die in agony, but they died at peace in their hearts, seeing the Lord. That's a sacrifice of joy and love. So even though your body is torn, it's like, be torn in pieces. Like when Stephen was, receiving stones, a lot of bruises and broken bones, but his face was like an angel. Serving God requires sacrifice of joy and love. And it's a sacrifice that brings a truly fulfilling life. Nowadays, many people say, hey, what's the reason to live today? I do not have a purpose. I do not have a reason. Even though they have lots of things, everything they need maybe, but still they cannot find the purpose. My friends, you're at the right place. So when you serve the Lord with a sacrifice of joy and love, you will never feel that fulfilling feeling in your hearts. If you have lost somewhere in your life, the purpose of your life, now I invite you, serve the Lord. There's true fulfilling joy in serving the Lord. Amen? So this morning I offer you to God as a living sacrifice. And how many of you like to be a living sacrifice for the Lord? Can I see your hand? Amen. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. When we do not become a living sacrifice, our service is carnal. It's against God. We must serve God as a living sacrifice, which is acceptable to God and which is your reasonable service.